The wind moved like a mourner through the pines that morning, slow and deliberate, brushing frost across the high meadow where the snow reached knee-deep in places. Boone Callahan rode with one gloved hand resting loose on the reins, the other tucked into the warmth of his coat. His breath hung like smoke in the hush, and the only sound was the steady clop of his gelding's hooves over packed snow. He wasn't heading anywhere particular, just avoiding town, avoiding questions, avoiding the ache that never softened, even after 7 winters. At the edge of the old cemetery, where crooked stones leaned like tired shoulders, Boone saw her, a tiny figure in red, alone amid the whiteness. She stood knee-deep in a drift, her back to him, dark curls tangled beneath a sun-bleached bonnet. He slowed, heart thudding. She turned. She couldn't have been more than 4. Pale cheeks, raw lips, eyes too wide for her little face. But she didn't cry, didn't seem scared. Just looked up at him and said, "It's Mama's birthday today." Boone blinked, unsure he'd heard right. "She's under there," the girl added, pointing to a rise in the snow like a sleeping giant. "I brought violets." The bundle in her mittened hand was half frozen, but it was real, wilted flowers clutched with quiet dignity. Boone dismounted slow, boots crunching. His gut clenched. "Where's your home, sweetheart?" he asked softly. She said it was here. Boone knelt, brushed his glove across the mound. And then, God help him, he saw it. A patch of wool peeking through the crust. A worn quilt, half buried. A woman's hand, fingers blue at the tips. His breath caught. He didn't think, just moved. He ripped through the snow with his bare hands, fingers burning. The little girl watched, silent, as he uncovered a face, pale as bone, lashes iced over, lips parted like she'd just finished whispering a secret. Her chest fluttered beneath the fabric, barely. Alive. He tore his coat off, wrapped it around her. She didn't stir. "Help me," he said, voice thick to no one in particular. He lifted her in both arms, cradled like something holy, and turned to the child. "Come on, we're going." She followed without question. Inside the livery house, heat breathed from the old stone hearth. Boone laid the woman gently on his cot, every motion reverent, like tending a wounded deer. The girl curled in the corner on his saddle blanket, watching with the tired eyes of someone too young to carry this much. Boone stripped off the frozen quilt and laid warm cloth over the woman's limbs, brushing melted snow from her face. A locket slipped from her collar, the chain brittle with cold. He opened on instinct. Inside was a photograph, his. Boone fell back on his heels. Clara. Her name struck him like a church bell in the dark. Clara May Whitmore. Gone 7 years. Vanished without a note, without a reason. He'd searched the plains, asked wagon trains, waded through letters that never came. Now, here she was half frozen, half gone, and yet somehow holding a piece of him against her heart all these years. Boone sat there for a long time, listening to the fire crackle and the wind die down outside. The child dozed curled like a cat. And Clara breathed, faint but steady. He couldn't stop staring at her. The years had worn her. Lines curled like feathers around her mouth, and her hands bore the roughness of survival. But her face was the same. It had never left him. She stirred once before dawn, murmuring something about snow and violets, then fell still again. Boone stayed awake, watching both of them. In the stillness, the truth settled heavy in his chest. She had a child with eyes that bore too much silence, with a voice full of things unsaid, a child who called her Mama, who carried flowers to her mother's grave, even when the grave was just a mound of snow. By morning, word had leaked through town. Sheriff Rigg showed up by noon, boots thudding against the porch, eyes sharp with suspicion. "Saw you had company," he said, not bothering to tip his hat. "Some folks think that woman might be Clara Whitmore. If that's true, you're stirring up a hornet's nest, Boone." Boone leaned in the doorway, arms crossed. "I ain't stirring nothing. She's half dead, and that child had nowhere to go." "You think it's a coincidence she turned up now? After all this time? With a kid no one's ever seen?" Boone didn't answer. "Her sister's married, respectable now," Rigg continued. "Mrs. Irene Callahan. Don't take kindly to scandal. especially not blood scandal. Folks won't welcome Clara back easy. Boone's jaw clenched. They never welcomed her right the first time. Riggs shrugged. Just looking out for you. You take her in, you'll be answering questions you didn't ask. That night, Boone bolted the door, fed the child stew, and let her hold his harmonica, though she didn't know how to play. She asked if Mama would wake up soon. He told her, gentle as he could, "I reckon she will." After she fell asleep, curled beside her mother, Boone stood at the window, watching snow pile quiet against the sill. He thought of the past, how Clara had been promised to a rancher, and how Irene had gone in her place when Clara never arrived. Shame was a loud thing back then. Whispers had chased Clara like hounds, and Boone had been too young, too unsure to fight them off. But not now. When the fire died low, he sat on the edge of the cot and touched Clara's hand. Her skin had warmed. She didn't wake, but her fingers moved just a little, curling around his. He stayed there, still and silent, for a long while. The locket hung heavy in his pocket. Then a whisper in the dark. "You ain't gonna send Mama away, right?" He turned. The little girl sat upright in the dark, blanket around her shoulders, eyes glistening. Boone's voice cracked like a dry twig. "I never stopped looking for her." She nodded once and lay back down, satisfied. Boone turned again to Clara, brushing a curl from her temple. In the hush of the cabin, his heart spoke a language it had forgotten. He should have fought for her. He saw that now, too late and yet just in time. Outside, snow kept falling like forgiveness. Inside, the past and present lay side by side on a cot too small for the weight they carried. And Boone Callahan sat watch, waiting for the woman he'd once lost to open her eyes. Clara woke to the scent of horses and wood smoke, her body aching as if she'd carried winter inside her. The ceiling above was unfamiliar, with beams and a single lantern flickering low, but the warmth was real, stitched into every corner of the room. Ellie's small body pressed against her side, rising and falling with a peace Clara hadn't seen in weeks. She shifted and winced. Her hands were red, raw, her legs heavy, but her heart thudded faster with each breath, stirred not by pain, but by memory. Boone Callahan. He was here. He had saved her, and she had brought shame to his door once more. She sat up, her fingers trembling as she tucked Ellie's curls behind her ear. The child didn't stir, just clutched the corner of Boone's flannel shirt, which she'd curled up with like it was a blanket. Boone stood near the stove, silent, his shoulders hunched. A man aged by silence more than years. He turned when he heard her shift, and in his eyes was something she couldn't bear, recognition, but not blame. "Just ache. You're awake," he said. "I shouldn't be," she whispered. But he didn't let the words settle. He moved slow, poured warm broth into a tin cup, and brought it to her. She took it with both hands. Their fingers brushed. She didn't look up. "It snowed again," he said. "Blanketed everything clean." Nothing was clean. She had left him. She had run when her belly swelled, afraid of what the world would call the child. Afraid of Irene's hard mouth and her father's disappointment. She'd gone north, working hands to the bone for bread and dignity. But neither lasted long. Now she sat across from the only man who had ever spoken gently to her in a world that loved sharpness. And she had returned with a child and nothing else. "She's yours," Clara said, voice frayed. Boone didn't move, didn't blink. "I figured," he murmured. Clara's lips parted, but the words wouldn't come. The fire popped. "I wanted to write," she said, "but I couldn't read the replies." He gave a soft, sad smile. "I never sent any." Her eyes burned. She looked away. That morning, they walked into town. The snow had softened to slush beneath the hooves of passing wagons, and shopfront windows blinked with ice crystals. Boone didn't speak, just held Clara steady with a hand beneath her elbow. Ellie skipped between them, pointing at birds and signs as if she'd always belonged to both of them. But eyes followed, paused. Murmurs gathered like dark clouds. At the mercantile, Irene stood in a pressed green coat, her hat perched like a crown. Her face paled when she saw them. Her eyes locked on Ellie, and something in them twisted. "Well," she said coldly, "look what drifted in." Clara stiffened. Boone's grip didn't tighten, but it didn't loosen either. "Irene," Clara said, voice even, "I suppose you're here for charity." Irene said. Or forgiveness. Or both. I'm here because I survived, Clara replied. You should have stayed gone. Ellie reached for Clara's hand. Clara took it. Boone stepped between them. That's enough. Irene scoffed. Don't think marrying him will fix this. People remember. And that child, her eyes flicked down. They'll remember her too. Boone's voice was low, but it carried. She's ours. That's all anyone needs to remember. Irene left with a whirl of skirts. Clara stood shaking, but not from cold. Back at the cabin, Boone lit a lantern. Clara sat by the fire with Ellie on her lap, braiding the child's hair with fingers that still trembled. Boone stared out the window until she said softly, I didn't mean to stay gone. I just didn't know how to come back. He turned, his face a map of everything he hadn't said. I waited, he said. 7 years. I was afraid you'd be ashamed of me. Boone knelt in front of her. Ellie looked up, silent as snow. I was ashamed I didn't go after you. She looked in his eyes, then really looked. Saw the man beneath the years, heavier now, quieter, but still him, still Boone. And maybe she wasn't too late. The barn burned that night. The sky lit orange behind the hills, and Boone woke to the scent of smoke and the crackle of fire. He bolted upright and ran, barefoot, shirtless, heart-pounding. Clara behind him, clutching Ellie, coughing through the wind. Flames leapt like tongues through the roof, embers swirling like fireflies gone mad. Boone raced in to cut the stall ropes. The horses screamed, wild with fear. Clara called after him, then charged through the smoke herself, dragging a pail of water, smothering embers on the hay, her skirts scorched at the hem. Together they came out choking, soot-streaked, arm in arm. The horses were safe. The barn was not. In the ash, Boone found the saddlebag where Ellie had hidden the violets. They were blackened now, but still whole. He pressed them into Clara's palm. Small things survive, he said hoarsely. She nodded. So do we. The next morning, the sheriff returned. Irene's petitioning for custody, he said grimly. Claims Clara's unfit. Clara's mouth opened. No sound came. She says you're not married. Says that child was born out of sin and lies. Boone's hand found Clara's. Held it. We'll go to the judge, he said. The hearing was held in the back of the church. Wooden pews filled with faces Clara remembered too well, sharp-eyed women, tight-lipped men. Boone stood before them like a stone. He didn't speak loudly. Just true. She ain't what they say, he told them. She's what came back. She's what stayed. They sat in silence. Then the judge cleared his throat. The child stays with her mother. Clara wept without sound. Later that week, Boone took her hand under the sycamore tree behind the church. Spring had come early. The snow was nearly gone. The buds shone bright on the branches. No guests. No gowns. Just them. Ellie scattered violets around their boots. Clara whispered, I don't deserve this. Boone bent his head, kissed her hand. We do. As the sky blushed gold. The church bell rang once, soft and clear. Clara turned to Ellie. Do you know what today is, little one? The girl grinned. It's Mama's birthday. Clara laughed, the sound bright and unbelieving. Then Boone reached into his coat, pulled out the locket, and opened it between them. 2 photographs now, his and hers, and in the center, a dried violet. Clara covered her mouth with her hands. Boone whispered, now it's ours. And in that moment, she knew the thaw had finally come.